it was part of the norm, and it's interesting how quickly we forget. I just get in line and I'm telling myself, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in line for a supermarket. And then I was like, well, actually, if I go back long enough, this was the norm. So it is what it is. And we as humans, we adjust and adapt. And, it's interesting. I do these kind of challenging trips, adventurous trips where, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, the survival trip that we did a show on the other day. And, some people ask, why do you do that? Like, why do you need that in your life? Climbing up Kilimanjaro, there's like half the oxygen, you can't breathe. You're constantly out of breath. The high altitude making your ears and nose bleed, your heart's pumping, your headache, just everything's like the pressure you're really feeling on yourself. And then the cold and everything else. And, there's times where I'm asking myself, like, why am I putting myself through this? And the answer is because that's how we find out what we're made out of and how we react. And we kind of shape our toughness and our focus and our, we really get to know ourselves. And what a great opportunity right now, whether as an entrepreneur or anybody else. And usually we create this artificially. It's like, all right, I'm going to go and do this challenge. I'm going to go, I did what's the race called? The Spartan race. Mm-hmm. And, after a while, you're carrying these boulders and you're carrying these things and it's like, how am I doing this? But when you're at the end, your mental toughness kicks in and you just really start digging in deep and kind of figure out, do you have it in there? And can you, and most of it is mental anyways, right? And so here's a situation where we did not intentionally go out and create it. You just came and found us. But what an opportunity to take it that way and say, okay, let's see what we're made out of, and let's see what we can make out of this situation as well. So yeah, interesting times.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I'm such a firm believer that struggle equals strength, right? And through the chaos creates genius.
Yeah.
If you're, again, depending on that power perception on how you decide to look at it. I'm absolutely. And
right.
And that's what I love about the entrepreneurial journey, over the last 25 years for me. Yeah, that's for sure. It's just figuring out those resources, man.
Yeah.
Right. And being willing to take that step. Here's one of my quotes that I just, I try and live by is I say this one: the darkness is only temporary. As long as you keep moving forward, the only time it becomes permanent is when you go back into safety. And
100%.
It's how we're built. And your story about the Soviet Union reminds me. I had a show a few years ago, 2016 and 17, and it was a mobile. It was called Monster Motivator TV, and we would either come to you or you'd come to my studio in Marietta, right? And I did a show out in Vegas. I did a few shows out in Vegas, and my friend Amy Kardashian, she talked about, she's from the Middle East, and she came over here at 18, and she talked about walking into our supermarkets at 18 years old. People were in line, and their carts are overflowing with food, right? And they're aggravated because they have to wait in line. She was floored. She goes, I can't even, first of all, I can't even believe that the stores are filled like this, number one. And number two, they're mad because they have to wait in line, right? It's all perspective. It's all perception, right?
Yeah. And I was exactly that age when I came out here. I was 18.
Okay.
And besides the culture shock, besides the language barrier, I didn't speak any English, and everything is different. Like the way people dress, the way people, what they eat and how they communicate and interact. And for me, even the little things, like, growing up behind the Iron Curtain, a lot of things were censored and kept away from us. Even Western music, television, books. Some people have dealers for drugs. I had a dealer for books.
Right.
Western books were illegal. And so everything was translated and typewritten on a typewriter and copies made into books. And that you'd meet with the guy and he'd say, okay, I have this book and this book and this book. Which one do you want? What do you want? And then you literally meet in a park and give him some money, you give like copies of the books, you go back and, and I think this is where my love for books comes from, or movies. I have a film company as well, besides the law firm. I think everything that I felt like, it was, especially movies and books, they're windows to this other world that we had no access to. This is before internet. This is before, any of that communication devices. And so for us, it was just through the books and stories and film that we saw how the rest of the world lives.
Yes.
And this is why it was censored, because they didn't want us to see how the rest of the world lives, Yeah. I remember landing in Rome, Italy. We went through Italy, and just the airport, the first like foreign place I found myself in, just looking around, there's like kiosks with, gum and sodas and magazines, and even like some racy magazines. Like I'm thinking, like, how is this guy not getting arrested? Because see, I grew up, and this is where my passion for entrepreneurship comes from. Entrepreneurship was illegal in Soviet Union. If you're an entrepreneur, you get thrown in jail. Everything was owned and operated by the government. Everyone worked for the government. Everyone got a paycheck from the government. And so there's no incentive. There's no competition. There's no, and everything that was taught and programming us was anti-entrepreneurial. Don't question authority. Don't stand out. Don't think outside the box. Just kind of follow the herd mentality. And everyone you knew who was trying to be entrepreneurial was either ending up in jail or was doing stuff kind of illegal. And that's the mindset you come in here, and then you see the whole flip, and this is where, and I speak a lot on this, and I actually have a book coming out that I co-wrote with Shelley Lefko. I don't know if you know her, from Lefko Institute, on limiting beliefs in entrepreneurship. Because the stuff that gets programmed in us, and even if you grew up here in the United States, there's a lot of stuff that gets programmed in you from a young age. You're not good enough, you're this, you're that, and this is the filter through which you make your decisions, and you see the world, and you process information and analyze information, and it affects everything that you do. And so when I came out here, democracy or politics was one fascination I had. So I got into politics a little bit. I worked in DC, and I clerked for one of the White House think tanks, and just kind of saw how that world works, and it was fascinating. And then the other one was entrepreneurship, and I have appreciation for especially small businesses, where that's the backbone of any economy. That's where a lot of the innovation comes from. That's a lot of the drive, and a lot of and this is why Soviet Union collapsed. There was no innovation. There is no competition. And here you have this kind of fertile soil where it's encouraged almost to get entrepreneurial, do this and do that, and it's amazing. And I think, having spent some time in Washington D.C. And seeing how that world works and functions, or dysfunctions, I've realized that most of the changes and most of the solutions for our biggest problems, whether it's the environment, whether it's poverty, whether it's health crisis, is going to come from the private world, from the entrepreneurs. These are the people who are not married to status quo. They want to change. They're not necessarily driven by just financial gains. They are resourceful. They think outside the box. They're coming from the outside, and they have a mentality of solving problems. And so this is where, a young guy who came up with a solution how to get the microplastic out of the oceans, or, different things where, all of a sudden, someone somewhere in his garage comes up with a concept that might change, even from Ubers and, everything else that all that innovation is not coming from the DC or the politicians or the government. It's coming from conscious entrepreneurs. And that's where my focus has been, to help support and empower conscious entrepreneurs, because I think that's where the change and that's where the hope is. That's where the answers to our problems will come from and are coming from.
Yeah, and even to go even a little deeper on that, not only don't they come from DC, but when you look at the career politicians, a large percentage of them, that's all they've done, right? Is that career. So that's,
Yes, they're
that's
making business decisions.
Yes.
And without having run a business or hired a single employee and not knowing anything about cash flow and
can we
balance
say
sheets.
being in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
So
yeah.
that, and that's it. I want to do we're recording this, so we'll be able to chop this up. I'll do a real introduction for you, because I've been reading your bio a few times, and I love it, man. I love it, brother.
Okay.
I'm really, really interested in biting into some of this stuff, because for me, it's the real world, right? It's you could look, the knowledge you can get from that book, the knowledge you can get from that classroom, but the real world wisdom comes from people that have been there, done it, and are currently doing it. So that's why I was excited to have you on. But I do need a little bit of help from you. How do you pronounce your last name so I don't?
Sure. Yepremyan. Vahan Yepremyan.
Vahan
Yepremyan.
Yepremyan.
Yepremyan. Yeah.
Okay. Vahan Yepremyan. So we're going to just do an actual introduction. Guys, welcome to Brand Builder TV. I'm excited for this episode. This is the second time our guest has been on. Before that, you guys are going to see when we do the chop up the clips. And I got to tell you, Vahan, to date, the most fun I've had on a podcast was that episode.
That was a fun one,
right?
That was a fun one.
We call it the Africa episode, and I'm going to leave it there for you guys because you got to check out these clips. I had a blast. The energy was just off the charts. Right. It was just, we let the universe do their magic.
Yes. And credit to those two guys as well. I think we've kind of spent so much time, especially quality time together in very extreme situations and conditions where we've kind of just come together. And so that comes off in a lot of the situations as well.
Oh, so, it was a lot of fun. I was very excited. And I have to give, Eric Mendez the credit because he's the one, after the second episode me and him did together, he's the one that said, you know what, we need to get this. We need to do another episode with these two guys. I'm like, yeah. So I had no idea. He put it all together. And,
he's amazing. And he actually is the one who put together the Africa trip and the whole TV show that hopefully is coming out now.
Yeah.
So he's been doing this for a while now. So he was the real expert. We were going in not knowing what we're walking into. So yeah, very grateful for all that.
Thanks
for opportunity to tell the story. You almost relive the whole experience when you share it. And so it's always fun to remember, especially when you remember with the group that you were there with. It just kind of things that you've forgotten, they remember, and it just like it brings it all back.
And for the guy that wasn't there, you guys brought me in. Right? You brought me in, and it's funny because I'm a big fan of just keeping it real, raw, and live, right? And just going with the flow, and it just automatically brought up just some interesting questions, right? As you guys, and the three different perspectives. That's what was so neat about that as well, right? You have two guys; it's the first time ever, and then we have another guy that put everything together. It's been doing it for 10 years.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But he had his challenges.
He did.
The universe is so interesting. Universe said, "Okay, 10 years, you got this handled. Let me throw this at you." Right.
As soon as you feel like you've got it all figured out, that's when the things come out.
So, guys, I'm excited. Vahan, author, speaker, serial entrepreneur, my kind of trifecta, man. My kind of trifecta. So. Vahan, I'll just get the people up to speed. You own and operate and started a law firm out in LA, correct?
Yes.
LA County. You're in the film world. You're a partner with a film company and a distribution company. You're co-authoring a book, and you're a world traveler, right? My kind of guy, man. And that's why I was excited to have you on because, and then when when you sent me your bio, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. But I didn't know about the, where you were from, right? The immigrant world. And I want to go into that immigrant mentality. And it's interesting because we're a little bit similar in that aspect in this way, Vaughn. So I was put up for adoption at birth, and I was in an orphanage in North Philly for the first 18 months of my life. And then I was adopted by two amazing human beings, but they were in their middle to late 40s. So I was raised with the World War II generation. So my dad was 82nd Airborne in World War II. So his whole philosophy was lace up your boots, get to work. Nobody wants to hear it. Right. So it's close to me, that generation is as close to that immigrant mentality as you can get, going through the Depression, going through World War II, figuring out how to get back up on your feet on the other end. So I was so grateful that I was raised in that. They were two generations ahead. I was raised in that mentality. And I want you to share with people your thoughts and how it's helped you with that immigrant mentality, because I believe, here's what I believe that immigrants have over most that were born and raised here. And that is, they have what I call the dynamic duo. They're blessed and they're ready for more. So when you're blessed in the moment, right, and you are ready for more, you become bulletproof. You become bulletproof. So speak on that, man.
Yeah, so I was born and grew up in former Soviet Union. In fact, the country I was born in doesn't exist anymore. Not too many people can say that. It's it fell apart and it imploded. And I moved out to US and came here as a refugee actually when I was 18. Didn't speak the language, didn't know much of the culture or anything else, because this is pre-internet, pre-social media. And so all we knew is from the movies and bootleg movies and books, because even the Western films and literature and art was not allowed, and it was censored out. A funny side note is all the films, Western films that we got to see from the black market were translated by one person and dubbed by one person who was doing it underground. Wow. So every film I've seen, it's this one guy's voice doing the female voices, kids' voices, male voices. And he did not even try to act. He just talks like very monotonous, just like, not like this. And so every film I've seen until I moved out here, Western film, was just one guy, one voice, just dubbing everything. Wow. And so coming out here, I think one is, you nailed it. It's feeling blessed and, having this opportunity in front of you. And when you have that, it's almost your responsibility to take advantage of it. Yes. For me, one of my driving forces was my parents, who pretty much gave up everything they had back home and moved here for me and my sister's future. They felt like we didn't have any much future back home. And for them, they were comfortable enough where they could have comfortably lived there for the rest of their life and would have been fine. But for us, it wasn't the world that they wanted us to grow up in. And so they gave everything up to come out here. So one of the driving forces was to give them some of that and make them feel comfortable and live the life that they deserve to live. And so that was one of my driving motivations. But also just, you give up all your friends, you give up all your everything, your whole world. And yes, there's a lot of limitations, there's a lot of censorship, and there's a lot of suppression and oppression. But this is a world you know and you grow up, and all my friends were there, and leaving everything behind. And we were only allowed to bring one suitcase per person. And you bring in photos and you bring in all the sentimental stuff, and $10,000 per family. That's it, which very quickly was borrowed from my dad by someone and never returned. So basically, just no money. Yeah. And we started as refugees with public assistance and food stamps and stuff. And my driving force was, there's an opportunity here for me to do something and make something of myself. And yeah, it was tough, but I knew it was temporary. It was something that I had to go through, and it was really good for me because it just motivated me. You know, times where you don't have enough money for lunch, you bring some food from home, but you don't want, you know, at school people to see it. You go in and eat it in the library, and then you say, oh, I'm good, and just all this stuff just motivates you to, like, I got to go out and do something. And I think not only the immigrants, but also people who come to certain places like California or Los Angeles or the Bay Area, it attracts people who are trying to do something more and bigger. They have dreams, right? There's this energy about California, I think probably from gold rush times, where people come out here to make it, to do something big, you know, and then it was the movie industry, and then it was the Silicon Valley. And it has this energy of, I'm going to make it. I'm here. And I love that. I love that. I'm going to create something. I have a dream, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to do whatever it takes. You know, I believe that cities and places have their own energy, you know, and there's some beautiful places in Europe you go in and just gorgeous and historical, but very old energy, very, you know, doesn't have that energy of creation and new and regeneration stuff. It's kind of, this is how it's been and this is how it's going to be, and it's not changing. And you feel that. Here, it's not. It's like, how can we improve this? How can we make it better? And what is the next opportunity? You know, almost to a fault where, you know, especially one of the challenges entrepreneurs have is to keep focus. You know, every little shiny thing here and there, you know, because there's so much. And so, you know, having the discipline to go with it is important. But so I found myself here, and, you know, I started learning the language first, and I went to junior college and learned the language, and then went on to university and law school and business school. I'm really grateful for this country because it not only gave me the education, it gave me the opportunities, it took me in. It made me feel more at home within the first year than I felt at home at USSR growing up for 18 years. And wow. and I felt, even when I was learning the language, and, you know, and I still have an accent, but I had very, you know, my English wasn't very good. And people were so helpful and always so encouraging. It was very, very nice. Unlike most of the other countries where, you know, you move to France or you move to Italy, you'll never be Italian. You'll never be French.
Right.
You know? America, we all are Americans, you know, and I think that's what makes it great, because it's got so much diversity and different ideas and concepts, and people bring their history and their traditions and mix it with the American way. And I think this is where all this innovation comes from, you know, putting the old and the new together. And so, again, I felt blessed, and I felt like I need to make something of this opportunity. But interesting thing happened, and I've noticed a big shift in me when I shifted from, you know, when you come as a refugee, your first thing is this American dream, and so your initial notion is, what can I get from this? Like, where are the opportunities I can take advantage of, right? What can I take? What can I do to get more of this? And that's great. And you're taking advantage of those opportunities and doing great stuff. But that's a different energy from, what do I have to offer? What value do I, you know, instead of taking, giving? And it really transforms not only your perspective, but also your business, because your thinking changes. What does this world need? What is my core competence I have, of value I could deliver, and who needs it most, and how can I create that value and deliver it to them in the best way, rather than what can I get from them?
Yes. I think, Vahan, let's go back a little bit, because there's some really awesome lessons here, right? And things that you said that you experienced. And I'm going to give you much more credit than you just gave yourself. And I mean this, right? It's a genuine thing. So one of the lessons I want the audience to really understand, and the best way for me to get the point across, is the power of perception. Let's dissect what you said right early on. When you came here, within that year, you couldn't believe how welcoming people were. And let me share this short little story that ties right into this, and you're going to see how much credit you deserve on that. And I mean this. I don't know if you ever heard this story, but there's a old man sitting in a rocking chair in front of this town, little town, right? Little nothing town. Guy comes walking up and he says, "Hey, old man, I got a question for you." He says, do you live in this town? He says, yeah, I live in this town. He says, how is it? The old man says, how was the town you left? He goes, it was horrible. Nobody liked me. I couldn't get, everyone talked about everyone behind everybody's back. He goes, yeah, it's the same way here. You probably don't want to go. He goes, oh, thank you so much. Leaves. A few days later, another guy comes up and says, hey, old man, how is this town? He says, how's the town you came from? He says, oh, it was awesome. I loved it. I just want to experience something new. But everyone helped each other. Everyone was, they couldn't do enough for one another. He goes, that's exactly how it is here. But Vahan,
I love that. I've never heard that.
That's
I love
the power of perception, right?
Yeah.
Is your energy, what you put out comes back. And
100%.
we always have them for the ones that say this is airy fairy, Easter bunny and rainbows, right? Quantum physics tells us that it's true, right? So I want people to understand that you create your own reality, right? So what I love about the story that you just shared is what I believe personally, being on this earth 53 years, that shows pure intention. And when you have pure intention, you become bulletproof.
Yeah.
You become, you are like Mr. Magoo. That I-beam, you just step on it. And then that I-beam, it's always there. That I-beam was always there. So I just wanted to go back because that's a huge, huge lesson, especially in the entrepreneurial world, right?
For sure.
That power of perception when we all feel like we're on that island alone, right? And it's dark.
Yes. And
so
you always find what you're looking for as well. If you're looking for more of this, you will look for it and you'll find it. And you're looking for that. I remember I a few years back, I decided to get the Tesla car. And I'm like, all right, it's green and it's environmental and it's great drive and all this stuff, and not too many people have it. I get it. I'm driving back from the dealership. I saw so many of them. I'm like, what were they? Because I start looking for them.
Yes.
And we see what we look for. We find what we're looking for. If you're looking for discouragement, especially in these times, you're looking for gloom and doom, you'll find it. There's plenty of it. You're looking for positive stories and opportunities, you will find them as well.
Yes.
Whenever there is a recession, there's always business opportunities. And what are you looking for? And what it all comes to the meaning as well. Nothing that happens has a meaning unless we put attach a meaning to it, and then we get affected by it. And so, what does this mean? What is that? Especially little kids always, I have an 8-year-old, and there's always questions. They're curious. They're trying to make meaning out of it. We do the same things. Like, what does this mean? What is that? And so having that mindset, and this is especially, I get asked a lot in especially in this kind of tough times. How do you navigate as an entrepreneur in challenging times? And you could have plans, and you can have contingency plans, you can have some reserves and everything else, but like as Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Right.
And we just got punched in the face. This is something that nobody really expected. As prepared as some companies and businesses were, this is not something that somebody really kind of envisioned. And but what an opportunity. What do we do now, and where do we go from here? And a lot of it has to do with your mindset, remaining calm in instead of running away from it or shutting down, just standing your ground. And they say the eye of the storm is the calmest place.
Yes.
In a hurricane. right in the center, and as an entrepreneur, you can get either paralyzed by fear, panic, anxiety, and don't do anything, or you could, one, appreciate what you have and where you are, because as bad as it is, most of us have shelter, we have food and communication and warm water and everything else. In some places, I do a lot of children's rights work, and some places I've visited, it just makes you, they live like that all the time. It's not like a temporary crisis they're facing with. This is the rest of their life, and this is how they live, and they don't complain. They play and they laugh, and is it tough? Yeah, but this is how they live. And for us, there's little inconvenience where we have to sit a little extra time on the couch, or and drive a little less, and I'm not belittling the fact that there's a lot of financial challenges that are coming up and will be coming up in the next several months. And hopefully some of this governmental assistance programs will ease that pain. But again, stressing about it, panicking, or getting anxious about it is not going to make things any better. And so, yeah, it's tough. And what do we do about it is where the leadership comes from. They say CEO also stands for Chief Emotional Officer in your company. You lead by example, and are you calm? Are you collected? They look up for you for how do we react? Are we okay? Are we in trouble? What's going to happen? And one is keep everything calm, and second is make sure you take care of your team first. I've always been with the philosophy of, there's a lot of literature about, customers first. For me, my team's always been first, because my team is the one who takes care of my customers. There's no company without the team. So you take care of the team, and they'll take care of your customers and your business, And so how do we do this? Can we survive? And what does that look like now? And what is that going to look like after? And first, is everyone safe? Is everyone taken care of? Do they need anything? No? Okay. So how do we do this in a socially responsible way where we could still serve our clients, not put them in danger, not put ourselves in danger, and try to get through this and see if we could actually come out even stronger and more determined and more driven and closer together and a better team. There's a lot has to do with how you process this information. The same set of facts get processed differently, and some of it has to do with our beliefs and our past stories. Some of it has to do with our mindset and how we deal with situations. You and I can walk into a room where there's a big dog, and let's say you've had all your life dogs and played with dogs and have great experience with dogs, and I've, let's say, been attacked by a dog or saw somebody who got attacked by a dog. So I've formed certain beliefs about dogs, that they're dangerous and stay away and everything else, and you're the opposite. We both walk into the same situation, same room, same dog. We're going to have completely different emotional reaction and action as well. I'm going to probably run out of the room and feel anxious and nervous. You're going to probably go up and pet the dog, and it's the same situation. It's what we bring into the situation and how we process that situation and how we perceive that situation.
Yeah,
and so,
I love that you went there, because we can go even deeper on that. Let's go deeper in the fact of, we're both in that room. We both brought in different energies for whatever reason, right? And let's just say it's the reason that you just explained. But here's the other question, Vahan, right? How does that other person or that other animal respond to that energy that you just brought in the room, right? And as a leader, where is your energy, right? Because at the end of the day, whether it's an animal or whether it's a human being, most people and animals too, they are looking for that leader, 100%. Right? They're looking for, because leader of the pack means survival for tomorrow. So that's interesting too, right? That you use that story, because our reality would probably end up completely different because of the energy we brought in the room, not because of that animal or because of that person.
Right.
So I love that. And let's go a little bit deeper on what you said too, is your team comes first, because now let's just talk about customer service, right? And so the energy that they bring on the other end of that phone, or the other end of that Zoom call, or the other end of that meeting, a lot of times determines how that customer feels, right?
100%.
I mean,
100%. Everything is I talk a lot about how your business is a reflection of you, and your beliefs and your stories and your emotional intelligence and everything else. It reflects it. And we are, from millions of years back, are programmed to read, little voices, the micro expressions and body language and the voice and everything else. And people, sometimes you don't know, but you kind of getting this gut feeling or something, right? And so we have that internal mechanism, and people read it, and your outer world reflects it back to you, whatever you put out. Like, again, like what you said, you get back what you put in. And so I think it's very important to stay calm, and one of the ways to do it is, instead of focusing on you and self-survival, is focus on, okay, is everyone that's dependent on me okay? And it takes, you go from this, like, what do I do to survive? And myself is, who is in more vulnerable situation, who I can help. And as you shift your focus in helping, a lot of that fear and anxiety about yourself goes away, because you're more focused on helping, and it's a whole different energy. It's a whole different energy that, it's hard to be anxious and fearful while you're lifting somebody up and giving somebody hope and giving them a hand. And so I think, whether it's just a phone call to a customer, even if you're not, maybe they're not buying anything, and maybe they don't need anything right now. Maybe just call and say, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Especially, in this country, suicide rates are crazy. A lot of people are disconnected and feel lonely and feel like they don't belong. And this is a conversation we actually touched on about our Africa trip, where, this ancient tribe that doesn't have depression, and the concept of suicide for them was actually funny, which is crazy. And so reach out to someone and just check in on them. What a great opportunity to kind of connect with people and build this connection without anything else, without trying to see, even if your business is dead, just, or not operational right now, just build those connections. Just whether it's your customers, whether it's your team, whether it's competitors, fellow entrepreneurs. There's always stuff you could do. And that, if you're not focused on yourself and focused on others, that always helps.
You take yourself out of that equation, right? And at the end of the day, when you are like this, let's keep it real, right? It's coming from a fear-based mentality. So when you shift that over to other people, other things, other opportunities, now that focus from a fear-based mentality comes more into that courageous mentality, right? And that courage comes from that three-letter word, core, which comes from here, right? There's a purpose, right? That's moving you through, just like you hear the story of the mom that had to lift the car off their child, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, they tied into that courageous mentality. And one of the things I love about this is, my book is called Fearless is Bullshit. Okay. And I'm a firm believer that, that when you embrace the fear, it starts to disappear, right? It's not about being, in my opinion, it's not about walking through life being fearless. And I'll share this with you, Vahan. I grew up on the East Coast. My family's from Jersey, Philly area. And growing up as a little boy and as a teenager and as a young adult, there's a lot of machismo, right? There's a lot of if you don't cry, right? Babies cry, or don't show your feelings, right? And I had to learn this through marriage counseling. Believe me, it was a trip. People ask me all the time, Dave Daly, the Monster Motivator, how'd you get into the spiritual world? And I this is how I learned it through, I have a whole keynote on it. I learned it through marriage counseling, and then just kept, I couldn't get enough of it. And now this is how spiritual I am, Vahan. You ready? I listen to and study Abraham every single day, bar none. So that's just a side note, but I'm such a firm believer that your vulnerability becomes your credibility, right?
And this
so
is why people connect with you and feel like,
yes, when they hear that you came over from the Soviet Union, right? You came over and you fell down and you struggled and you had to figure out how to you couldn't grasp the English language at first. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I don't know if it's accurate, but that struggle equals strength. And now you connect with people on such a level that when you can share your story real, raw, and live, again, you become, I use this term a lot, you become bulletproof. And what I believe is so important, at the end of the day, this is my message, and I know you're going to connect with this, and I want you to go deeper on this. When I speak from stage, digital or physical stages, I tell people, don't confuse my message. It's about fear. It's about being courageous. It's about identifying and crushing those fear barriers. But the most important part of all this is when you get to that other side of that fear, you build your self-image. And I'm such a firm believer that your self-image is so important that every adult's goal should be able to help build a child's self-image, to create a bulletproof self-image, whether it's your child or not. That's the greatest gift you can give any child, is to help them build, because you're going to teach them to fish that nobody has to fish for them. So I'd love you to go deeper on that, man.
That's the only way we could change the world, actually, is one kid at a time, because they're the ones who are tomorrow, they're making the decisions, and they're it's interesting that you brought that up, because I grew up in a culture that also very macho, and vulnerability was a weakness, or considered as a weakness, and so toughen it up, and so I still find sometimes challenging, and one of the interesting things is that when I speak, whether again digitally or from stage, I never come from a place where I don't have everything figured out, whether it's in an entrepreneurial world and anywhere else. And as an entrepreneur, you can have one company do amazingly well, or you can have 3 companies back-to-back ventures do really well, and then the next 2 or next 10 go horribly wrong. We don't know. You just got to kind of embrace and kind of just go on this journey and just go up and down, and know that what I've learned is things are not as bad as they seem, and they're not as good as they seem. Usually it's somewhere in the middle. And when things get bad, there's always, there's this thing, people talk about the positivity movement and everything else. And I think what that is about is not that everything is, you're always supposed to be happy and nothing really makes you sad or everything. No, every emotion is valid and you feel whatever you feel. It's just your overall understanding of the world is that things will work out, and things work out. The world works in a certain way that is serving you, whether it's a tough experience or a pleasant experience. It's stuff that we need both, and we get different things from each one. And so this is tough, and there's so many lessons we're learning, and there's so many opportunities. I'm a single dad, and I've spent few weeks with my daughter, just cooked up, and been awesome. We've been doing so much stuff, and arts and crafts and all this stuff. And what an opportunity, and what an opportunity to catch up on stuff, on reading. And it's interesting, people are complaining that there's this, they can't go out and can't do anything. And interesting what's gonna happen is, like, after this is over, are you gonna come out of this having watched all of Netflix and scroll through all of the IG posts? Are you going to come out having read some books and kind of fed your mind and learned some new skills and made some connections and made some business plans, or looked at your business plan and or your mission and vision. And because a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you're really a lot day to day, and some of the small businesses, they don't have that luxury and time to sit back and look at the 3-year, 5-year plan and where they're going and everything else. Maybe this is where we're going, because when you're going like one step at a time and you're not you're not seeing the big picture, and that's important. And so like the Chinese word for crisis is composed of 2 characters, right? Signifying danger and opportunity. And so we are in crisis, and which meaning do you choose? And whichever you choose, there's no right or wrong answer. You'll make it right. You choose its danger, you'll experience that, you'll have that and opportunity. And doesn't mean that there is no difficulties and there's no challenges and it's not dangerous, because this virus is dangerous. And so be mindful and don't be careless, but don't create anything more on top of that that's not necessary.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. It's so interesting that you were talking about the businesses, and I have an intro when I go on stage and I give to the event planner. It says, and I actually had to do it in bold because sometimes they would skip over this, but it says, Dave Daly, the Monster Motivator, built and sold 3 companies in 3 different industries, but also crashed one to the ground. And I've had event planners feel so bad that they skipped that. I said, no, that's my icebreaker, right? Because at the end, when I do Q&A, people want to know, right, about that. And here's what I tell them, Vahan, is here's how you take back and hold on to that empowerment. First and foremost, understanding that you are the one that has the ability to decide what that definition is, right? Now, from the outside, that business that crashed to the ground, most people are going to say that was a failure. But when you understand that you're the one that decides what that title is, and here's what I share with people, because that's the first thing they ask: what business did you crash to the ground? And how did you do it? And how'd you get back up? And what'd you do, right? I say to them, it was a restaurant, and I realized that I was better on this side of the counter than that side, okay? And I didn't do what I knew I should have done. I know this is surround myself with people that enhance my weaknesses so I can triple down on my strengths. I didn't do that. I thought I did. But here's what I said, here was the turning point. And only I can do this. Only you can do this. Once I closed the doors, I literally looked in the mirror and I asked myself a simple question. And I said, if I didn't do this at this time in my life, would I regret it? If my answer was yes, I won. My answer was yes. Now I can move on. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So understanding that you have the strength, the ability, the power to determine what that title is, right?
100%.
What that, and again, my background is we're so similar in our entrepreneurial spirit, but we're so different on our background. So your bio is right with degrees like this. I'll give you my bio real quick. Left back in the 2nd grade, diagnosed with ADD, said I had a learning disorder, never graduated high school. And at 19, I'm sitting in a jail cell looking at 8 to 10 if things don't go my way. So
that's amazing.
Again, right?
That's even more inspiring. And that's where people will connect to you a lot more.
Oh, so at the end, Vahan, right? When I do Q&A, what were you in jail for? And what business did you crash to the ground? That's all they want to know, right? But understanding that that's part of building your self-image, right? Embracing who you are, what got you there, right? And now where do we go from here? And one of the things you talked about, and I want you to go deeper on this, is personal development, right? A lot of people get it twisted. They think that means the Monster Motivator is always motivated, is always happy, is always on. No. What personal development simply does is build your toolkit. It builds your toolbox. So now when you find yourself in that funk, Vahan, and I want you to speak on this, when you find yourself in that funk and you build that toolkit equipped enough, all it simply means is you get out of that funk quicker than you could have before, right?
Yeah.
Talk about
Yeah.
that. I mean,
It's
that's the real.
that is, and it's interesting because I went to business school, and in business schools, they teach you all the external stuff. How to come up with a business idea, how to put a plan together, how to execute it, how to raise funds, and branding and team building and all that good stuff, right? Like scaling and execution and everything else. They skip the part about the person who's making all these decisions and the person who's going through this journey, the entrepreneur. And personal development is about getting to know yourself in all these different situations and your limitations, what's holding you back, and why, and is there a pattern, and sometimes there's a problem in the business that is connected with either the market or your product and services, or something to do with the business. And sometimes there's a problem with the business that is you, that you're not letting whether it's an entrepreneur who has some trust issues, and so he doesn't delegate, and so if you don't delegate, you can't scale, and so you're stuck at a certain level. I've had so many. It's interesting. I've had my law firm for 22 years now, and we've each year since inception, we've grown little by little, and each year done a little better than the next. In the last about 4 years or so, 5 years, and I've always been into kind of learning about myself and learning about the world and everything else. But I really, 4 or 5 years, I really got into personal development and really got to kind of examine myself and my limitations and my beliefs and my stories and what drives me, what are my weaknesses, becoming more self-aware. And nothing's changed in the law firm as far as new partners or new infusion of cash but the growth that reflected from my personal growth to the business was just astounding. I mean, we've done a few years back-to-back Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. We're, I think, in the top 10 fastest growing law firm in the US. And the Entrepreneur magazine also in 101 top companies with not only growth but values, and this is like a big algorithm. Los Angeles Journal, the best places to work, best companies to work for, top 25. And I'm not bragging. I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying that it's the same team, same company. I'm different.
Yes.
So I'm processing everything differently, and my team and my customers and my products and my everything else is different now because I'm different, and that just put me on a whole different trajectory. I saw this and I start sharing this with clients because my clients, average client has been with me between 6 to 8 years, and my growth mostly comes not from constantly getting new clients, but really investing in my existing clients and getting them to the next level. And so I want to share that they're like family, and they, I consider my clients' businesses as my business. I just don't own shares, but I do business consulting and legal consulting, and and so I start sharing and amazingly seeing the same results for them. And you can't work on yourself and not have that reflected on your business and on your relationships, on everything else. I have an interesting story. I had a client who grew up with certain beliefs, and this is something that our book talks about as well. A lot of interesting examples. She grew up with belief that money doesn't grow on trees. There's no easy money. You have to sacrifice. You have to struggle. You have to work hard, and to point where you have no life and no health, or not. That's how you get money. And she's been doing that, and she's been very successful entrepreneur and doing great. And an opportunity comes to license some of her products. And so she brings it to me. She goes, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. They're just going to offering to write some checks to me, and I don't have to do anything. in her belief system, that doesn't exist. There's something wrong. So I go, let's do some due diligence. I do some due diligence, figure out legit guys that have done this before. They're trying to take her concept, her IP, intellectual property, into other countries and do this in Latin America and translate it. And so she fought me on it for about a month, where it's not going to translate well. They're going to ruin my brand. I'm like, oh, you don't have to license your brand. You can just license the IP. They could do under their own brand. Okay, percentages. How am I going to do accounting? We could do flat certain fees and upfronts and all this stuff. So back and back, and at the end of the day, she's like, I just don't get it. Like, people don't just give you money for nothing. I'm like, oh, listen, you've been doing this for 10 years. Your sweat, your blood, your life, to a point where your health is not very well, and they're the ones who's getting it for nothing. All they're doing is just giving you a piece of, check money. You've put in your life into this, and you're giving them a ready product that's been tested for 10 years and done well and works and helps people. Who's getting the easy part here? Towards the end, the guys were ready to walk out, like, just waste of time. I asked them to give me a check. I said, can you give me it was a big chunk of change up front for the licensing deal. I said, I promise you, we're not going to cash it unless she agrees. And if she doesn't agree, I'll give you the check back.
Yeah.
So I called her in on Friday and I said, here's the check. She's like, oh, did you sign with it? I'm like, oh, no, nothing signed. Mm-hmm. We have to give them an answer on Monday. She's like, okay, they just keep the check. I'll think about it, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I go, no, you keep the check. You go home and let's talk Monday morning. I wanted to actually have the check in her hand and know that. And I said, if you decide that you want this deal, all you need to do is just put your account number on the back, sign it, go Monday morning to the bank, and come sign the contract and go and deposit it, and this is your money. She calls me Saturday with some other questions, like, oh, how does that work? It was like, okay, I'll think about it. Sunday, she calls me. She goes, okay. She goes, I don't think I'm giving this check back. Since then, and this was a few years back, we've licensed to probably about 6-7 countries, about a dozen cities. She's making much more money from that than from her own business, where she now wants to sell that business and just get royalties and do nothing. And always holding her back is that belief that money doesn't grow on. You have to sacrifice it. And again, there is hard work that associated with making money, but there's no prerequisites and conditions that you put yourself, and you limit yourself. And if you think that's the only way to do it, and you're going to put yourself through that, and so much of our decisions and our behavior is shaped by what we believe and what our past stories are and what we think about ourselves and about the world. And as you do personal growth and as you work on those, and you release some of those limiting beliefs that hold you back, all of a sudden a new possibility. It doesn't mean that if she let that belief go, that all of a sudden she's going to make a lot of money and be completely successful. But now she has more options to choose from. There is a bigger world and more choices. And
you know what? Let's also circle this and put some neon signs around it. Here's the other thing that I don't want them to miss. She's going to feel better.
She already does. She had 2 vacations. She hadn't had vacation for 5-6 years or something, and she had 2 in 1 year, which was unprecedented. And
but let's even go more micro. You ready?
Yeah.
Here's what you helped her do. Make a decision. Do you know how good that feels and liberating when you can literally make a decision, right? Because she was going to give you the check back and go, in her mind, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to make that decision, right? But you gave her the check, then you were there for her. But really, if we micro this, the feeling she had and the liberation that she was gifted with by making a decision and then just moving forward with it, right? And whether she realized it or not too is, again, I'm a firm believer that it really business and And life comes down to this simple thing. I'm a firm believer that life is simple, not always easy, but the simpler you make it, the easier it becomes. Is that when people ask me, what is the best advice you can give any business person, entrepreneur? And honestly, Vahan, there is so much out there, but it comes down to this. And this is where personal development really helps. And you said it right. Is it knowing yourself, is identifying your weaknesses so you can enhance them with the people and the systems so you could triple down on your strengths, right? Yep. Triple down on your strengths. And that's where I believe that, and we're both on IG, and we get thrown up every day on hustle and grind. Where people are missing out is the hustle and grind. The flame burns out. The inspired action is where that flame never burns out. And that's where you can leverage the people and the circumstances on the things that you're not strong at. So now you can run with your strengths, right? And I've always been in my businesses, I've always been the front guy, right? The relationship builders, but I needed the people in the back.
I could see that.
everything in order, right? I had a fire restoration business back east, and my business partner, Bobby, we're still really close. When we had it from 2000 to 2007, and I sold my half and came out here. But you're right. Monday morning, here's where our meetings. I used to call him Bobby Numbers, right? He had all the stats, all the numbers, and then I'd go, our first 10 minutes of our meeting, but I go, hey, I got this relationship. I went golfing with the guys from Nationwide. They're going to bring us all this work, and then he's telling us about all our margins, right?
Yes.
Don't you want to hear about the margins? I go, yeah. But anyway. Right?
I love it. I love it.
That's simple,
That's it.
Right? That's
simple.
It is that simple to do that. And I want you to share with us what you do and if you do this. So I'm a firm believer that life is about momentum. Okay? And I believe that you're either life and situations are either your strongest propeller or your heaviest anchor. And I believe that the way to make them your strongest propeller is to set yourself up for success. So I have an actual 2-hour morning routine with 4 different meditations. And that is my non-negotiable. It even trumps the gym. And that's amazing. Big, right?
That's saying a lot.
Do you have a routine, and what's your thought on the morning?
I am big on little things. You know, there's the saying that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And so there's no little things. And you know, especially in this world where our business life and personal life are so intertwined because of cell phones and everything else, you know, as the emails and texts constantly coming in and stuff. It's important to have a certain things in place where, especially in the morning, you know, when you get up, if you just get up with the alarm ringing and you're already in crisis mode because you just, you know, you've just been walking and now you run into the shower and grab coffee or whatever else it is and then just kind of run out of that's not a good way to start. You know, because then now you're energetically and everything else. It's you know, and that's how you're going to show up at the office. So I do have, you know, I do very short journaling, maybe about 10-15 minutes. When I'm still kind of semi-awake, semi-asleep, and I find that state to be very interesting creatively as well, because you haven't kind of fully woken up and kind of grasp the reality of what needs to be done and everything else, and you know, that kind of creativity is still there. I do a little meditation, about 15-20 minutes. I don't, you know, I wish I could do 2 hours, and I probably can, but for right now it's between 15 to 20 minutes. And then I work out. I try to do the intermittent fasting, so
Me too.
Depending on when I've eaten the night before, usually, you know, by 7 o'clock or so. So then, you know, after workout, maybe a shake or a light breakfast, and then I'm out. Now, the interesting thing is that I have also an evening routine, because it really, kind of a certain point where you, I do gratitude journal, about 10, 15 minutes, again, very short. These things don't have to be,
Nope.
very long, and it just takes just a couple of minutes. And just little things add up, whether it's in business or in your personal life. Like you said, momentum. If you just add just little bit of something each day or each week, it really adds up. One of the things, I'm working on my second book, about my climb to Mount Kilimanjaro, and one of the biggest lessons for me was, you're looking at this, the tallest single standing mountain in the world, and you're climbing it and you're going and going, it's the third day, and it feels like you haven't really moved, and it feels like it's moving with you. You get in there and it's moving further and further, and it's like, we're never going to get there. And then, you get up and, you're already feeling all this pressure and the oxygen and cold and everything else. And they're saying, oh, we're going to go to there. And you look, there's no way we're going to get there. And then you just focus on your just one step. Okay, what do I have to do next? And just to do that. And then what do I have to do next? Yep. And all of a sudden, little by little, little steps. And then you look back and you can't see where you started from, because it's already, so far off. And so it's just little steps. People, especially in this environment, entrepreneurial culture, where you see people go from $0 to $1 billion valuations, and something that seems to have started from a garage within a year gets bought out or whatever. People want instant everything, right? Mm-hmm. I think one of the important qualities to have is patience. And just putting in this little, kind of feeding your, whether it's your business, whether it's your mind, whether it's your life, whether it's your relationship, whatever else, and kind of being present in the moment. And I think meditation and journaling and everything else kind of brings you into that specific moment, instead of kind of just, because as you go into the business, it's, you're thinking about, okay, this meeting and that meeting, and now you're ahead for the day or for the week and for the projections for the quarter and everything else. It's important to spend some time just you and in the moment, and be grateful for what you have. And we set these goals, and for me, by the way, I think habits or standards are more important than goals. Yes. If you instead of raising your goals, you raise your standards, the goals will kind of take care of themselves. What kind of a person you are, what standards do you have, and what do you expect from you, and what do you do, and then the goals take care of themselves. But the goal is a moving target. You set a goal and then you get close to it and it's moved, because now you want something bigger. You want
yes.
something, we were greedy that way, right?
Yeah.
I remember, I keep going back to Mount Kilimanjaro because I've learned so much climbing it. Is, the goal was get to the top, and for 5.5 days, almost 6 days, we're climbing, and the focus is to the top. We got there. We spent only 20 minutes there. So again, all the lessons were learned on the journey, not those 20 minutes when I was up there. Yes. Everything of value that I got from that climb was not me standing up on top, because that's where just a couple of photo ops and pictures and everything else, and then let's go down because you can't breathe and it's cold. It's everything that got you there was everything of value. An interesting thing, I was with Ara, who was at the interview the other day as well. We looked at each other while we're still there, and like 10 minutes into it, it's like, what are we climbing next? Fuji in Alps, and we're setting the next goal. We haven't even enjoyed, like we spent almost 6 days climbing this thing, and 10 minutes later, the goals moved somewhere else. And so, being present and taking it in and appreciating and not postponing being happy, being certain way, feeling a certain way. When I get there, I will feel, because, especially as an entrepreneur, you never get there. I've seen clients cash out and have exit strategies, and then 3 months later call back, say, I'm going nuts here in Bahamas or whatever, and I need to do something else. And it's that kind of being in the juices, of figuring out problems and solving That's the climb. That's what we need to enjoy rather than the goal moves. And so being present and being grateful for even an opportunity to be an entrepreneur, an opportunity to be here, an opportunity, like for me, as soon as I got here, when I moved here, I was already a winner. Like
Yes.
I was looking back to all my friends and people in former Soviet Union who were not here, who did not have an option of doing things. I was already ahead of the game. Like if all I did is learn the language and got some kind of a good job and did something, I was much better off than I was before. And so it's good to want more, but I think it only means something if you appreciate where you are already and what you have already, because otherwise you're never satisfied, and you have this thing of I need more, that hole never gets filled.
It's a dark, deep hole, right? And we all know, we both know plenty of people with plenty of money that they can never fill that hole, and all they have to do is step back and start again, like we talked about in the beginning. When you feel blessed and ready for more, right? That to me is that's why we're here, right? We are here to want more, but you can't skip over the gratitude, right? Or we could call that dynamic duo grateful and hungry, right? I'm grateful for now and I'm hungry for more. I'm blessed now and I'm ready for more because and the other thing that a lot of times we're conditioned with, Vahan, is to feel guilty, right? To say, hey, I'm being greedy. No. That's why we're here. My personal opinion, belief is the reason that I'm here is to keep growing, expanding, wanting more, but not missing the journey along the way. Right?
No, exactly.
That's it.
And what I've, especially this times, used to be where you build a business, you build a great income, and then you do something with it, something good with it. You give back, you help, nowadays we live in the world where if you're not doing that at the same time as you're building your business, if you're not giving back, and if it's not part of your mission and vision as a company to have that contribution or charity built into it, forget about that's the right thing to do as a human race. It's bad business. It puts your company on a different level from your competition. Consumers and customers care about who they give their money to, and it's about the stories, and it's about values, and it's about principles. And so there's a company who Warby Parkers of this world or Toms of this world, I buy a pair of this and the pair goes to Africa or somewhere else. I'd rather spend $1 extra here knowing that something good happens there than $1 less here but nothing happens here. And so keeping that in mind, where as you're building a company, giving back should be built into your fabric of your business, and as an identity of your brand is someone that a company. And interesting enough, because as a law firm, we don't advertise much of a lot of the charity work we do, but it's helped me in team building a lot, and it's helped me. One of the many programs we have is our employees choose kids to sponsor from around the world. We work with different organizations, from World Vision to Unbreakable Foundation. There's just like 3 or 4. And so they pick a kid, and then so we as a company pay for the sponsorship, but they're the ones who are pen paling, and a lot of them who otherwise wouldn't have the finances to sponsor kids and do something like that, they get to do that as part of their job, so they associate that with our firm. And so it helps me retain employees, because that becomes part of a bigger mission that they're doing in this world. And it's not just pushing papers or sending emails.
Purpose.
There's more purpose. And so it helps in so many ways to do that. And so for younger entrepreneurs, where it's like, I'm not there yet, even if it's $1, even if it's not financial, even if it's you go out and help make a meal or cook a meal. Or, one of my, a few years back, I started, instead of just writing checks, actually going on these trips. And it's changed my life. I mean, from, sex trafficking rescues and everything else, to building homes in the Nicaraguan jungle or wells in Nicaragua, in Guatemala. When you're there, when you live with them, when you see, like we're in Nicaragua, we're in the jungle building homes, and the family whose home we're sponsoring and financing to build, and we're building ourselves, was there. And so they were building it with us. So the wife and the kids and the husband there, and we spent a few days there building it. And, it was very uncomfortable, obviously. It's just, the humidity and the mosquitoes and the snakes and the frozen ground and the heat and the rain, and just, all that stuff. You can't eat anything, you can't drink anything because of the water contamination. But it was such, like, you're just like on this natural high, like energy always there. This kids are running around in this, thing that's going to be their home. First time ever they've ever had their homes. And so, you get appreciation. You see how little we really need, to be, these guys, literally, we just built, it was like one big home. It's like one of those prefab homes. So we're not, we're kind of putting pieces together. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to build a home. But they're coming to us. It's like, what can we give you? Will you come visit us and stay with us? And they're going out and making juices, and they're, they know we can't drink this, and so it just you don't have to have a lot to give or to offer.
No, and
help,
the intention's pure. And when you were just talking about that, I want people to go check out your IG. Okay. So when you were talking about that, here's what jumped out at me. So when I was checking out your Instagram, and there's a picture with your hand out with her little foot, right? On your hand. And I just thought, as you gave me the chills, it just that vision came right into my head when you were talking about that, because you could feel your energy. And I went, oh, I remember that picture, right? That photo. So I encourage everyone to go check out your IG, because it is really, you're able to capture some really cool moments, man. That bring people in.
And it's about the moments,
Yes.
It's about creating those moments. And we're, one of the things with personal development is, for me, it's self-empowerment.
Yes.
It just gives you the power to make decisions and to create your life the way you want it, instead of being a victim and being, world happening to you, things happening to you, and you're helpless. Is all of a sudden you have a decision, you have a power to make a decision, and and take action, and it's empowering, where if you feel like you're a victim, then there's nothing you can do. You have no control.
Yes.
And so self-development gives you that choice and a decision and action to go out and create moments and intentionally create your life. A lot of times, and this is going back full circle to morning routines, is about being intentional and doing things with an intention, rather than just waking up and just, one emergency to another emergency, one call to the other one, and then all of a sudden somebody else's agenda becomes your agenda, somebody else's emergency becomes your emergency, because now you're getting these emails, you need to respond, and everything else, right? Where you create that little space, that it's your time, and you set the intention for the day, and you set the intention for the week or for the month, and you plan, and you make it, you make a decision, and again, there's times where I'm not perfect, there's times where I skip meditation, I skip my run, I skip, and I realize, like, I'm not perfect, I screw up, I'm going to try it better next time. And I feel sometimes lazy, I feel sometimes burned out, I feel sometimes scared, I feel, this is all okay. And that's another thing is, with personal development, you realize that being kind to yourself is just as important as being kind to others. we're a lot of times we're so
Yes.
tough on ourselves as entrepreneurs, especially. We set these expectations because we look at this, few people who've made it to the top, and why are we, and a lot of our suffering comes from us not wanting to be somewhere else than where we are, financially, emotionally, with our business, with everything else. And rather than kind of taking it as, this is where I am, this is my journey, that's his journey. I don't know where he's going. I don't know where he came from. It's amazing. And I celebrate a lot of these entrepreneurs and I learn a lot from them, the big names and the big people. I don't know their personal life. I know their outside life, I have my own. And so I have my own struggles. I have my own challenges. I have my own slip ups and screw ups. I learn from it. I try to do better next time. And all I could do is just kind of be kind to myself and say, you know what, you screwed up there. And, let's not do that again. And then I'm sure there'll be more coming. It's okay. It's part of the experience, knowing that, but if you create that intentionality and it starts from, why in the morning, I think just symbolically, it's a fresh start. It's a fresh day. Energetically, you're focused, you've got, your strength, your focus, and you set the intention for the day, and maybe set up one thing that you want to accomplish that day, no matter what happens, that's what I do. Because my thing is, if one thing a day, one small step towards my bigger goal, there's a lot of stuff we deal with as entrepreneurs. You have vast experience in that. Is, there's employees and there's this and there's this. There's always stuff that, once you're in there, hits you from different, and so it's easy to get carried away from that and just manage all that. But at the end of the day, what's your main goal and where you want to go? And did I take a step towards that today? Even if it's a tiny step.
Yep.
Even if it's just one phone call, one email, one note, maybe one scheduled call or whatever it is, and it doesn't, this goal or this, whatever it is, might be very far or seem very far, but just like, one step at a time to the Mount Kilimanjaro, if you just do one thing at a time. And so setting that intention in the morning, saying, okay, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to accomplish this. All of a sudden that focus comes in, focus is so important, right? And that's something that I've also struggled as well. I'm a multitasker, or I used to be a multitasker.
It's our DNA.
yeah. Here. And so I constantly have to kind of bring this in. Look, we teach what we need to learn, right? A lot of times. And I speak from experience, both things that I have to go through and I'm still going through. And so it's more of, it's not coming from a place of I've figured everything out, so this is what you need to do. It's just sharing what has worked for me and what I'm still trying to figure out and see if this resonates. And, I'll learn from you, you learn from me. Important thing is having that open mind and being open to learning and not coming to the table or, thinking you have all the answers.
And where, right? And that comes from that fear-based mentality. So kindness, right? Openness comes from that courageous part, right? And that's so important. And I'm such a big believer that victims never win, right? Victims never win. So that, you really hit on that. And it's so important for people to understand that victims never win. So when you can adopt that, now you could start to move on, right? You could start to, my morning routine just simply is because life, me and you, our lives, we're like a sailboat, right? We're getting in that sailboat. We have an option. We could put those sails up and navigate the winds, or we can leave the sails down and let the ocean take us wherever they want to take us, right? But we have that option. We have that ability, and we have that freedom, right, to be able to do that. And if anybody can speak on that, it's you, because you didn't have that freedom, right? Years ago. You just didn't. You just didn't. So I think that's so important. I want to be conscious of your time, but I do want to put you on the spot. I want to have you back and talk about your other business, because
I love that.
At 100%, because there's so many different things that you're going to be able to share with people, right? Because of the different business. And
Sure.
There's going to be so many questions that come up. So I had to put you on the spot, man.
No,
I want to have you back because
I love it. And I'll have a lot, unlike you, I've had few businesses fail.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to share. I've had dozen of them. I have a few of them now, and some of them did well and some of them did terrible. And I've learned a lot more from the ones that didn't do well than the ones that did well. And
love it.
The reason probably some of my other businesses do so well is because I screwed up so much on the other ones, and
it's the truth. That's just the truth, right? And that's just the real. Yeah. And that's what I felt from you when we did the first show, right? It's just an energy, man. Yeah. And it's either there or it's not. It's either there or it's not, right? So I love that. So we are definitely going to have you back on and talk about your other business. And I want to say, I want to thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you, man. Thanks for having, thanks for the opportunity to share. And it's like you said, we all have so much to offer. No matter where you come from, no matter what you've done, there's always a lesson to be learned. I mean, look at you, look at somebody who, the background you have growing up,
wasn't
and
supposed
you're talking
to win.
about vulnerability. You're talking about personal growth. You're talking about, the fluffy stuff.
Yes.
And, that's a contrast.
Yeah.
And that's a journey right there. That's that's dramatic. Maybe not geographically, like distance wise, like me, but as far as where you were and where you are, it's actually more dramatic than what I've gone through, because that's a whole different world where you grew up, and look at where you are now. It's just, and I always say this, Vahan, right, is success in any part of your life is the same recipe, just different ingredients. Right? Okay. It's the same recipe, just different ingredients. And here's what I love about entrepreneurship. There is a brotherhood that is created, right? Because we both, even though we had completely different upbringings and different worlds and everything else, there's still a kinship, man, because 100%. We had to figure it out. We put the war paint on, right? Yes. We had to, and here's one of the things that I because I've been an athlete my whole life, and it's about this, and you're gonna love this. You just gotta bite down on the mouthpiece, man. Yeah, gotta bite down, right? Yeah, that's it. There's something there that it is what it is, right? Yes. It is what it is, and that's. I knew that you were gonna bring the realness, but. Again, energy, it is what it is. And thank you, man. I love the realness, man. One more comment on you mentioned, definition, success and because as an entrepreneur, one of the things we want is to be successful. Yep. And, and as I was going through my journey of, different companies doing different levels of success and failure and up and down, on paper, I was doing well, but wasn't feeling very successful, and myself, like, the law firm's doing great and it's growing, and film company, we won an Emmy and had a British Oscar nominee, it's growing and doing well. Didn't feel successful, it's kind of felt like and then I sat down and, and this is where personal growth comes from, comes into the picture. I start looking at what does it mean, success to me? How do I define it? And I start looking at it, and a lot of my definition was coming from the outside, the culture, the American dream and society and everything else. And then I said, okay, so when do I feel successful? When are the times that I feel successful? I start writing it down, when I spend quality time with my daughter, when I travel, when I do charity work, when I take my mom to nice places. And interesting enough, the top five things on the list, or 6 or 7, had nothing to do with work. And I realized that working more or spending more time in the office to chase success would never make me feel successful, because that's not my definition of success. And so being aware of what makes you feel, because it's different for everyone. And I'm not saying my definition is right or wrong. It's just that's mine. And so, again, going back to knowing yourself and what makes you feel fulfilled and successful. And once you know that, instead of chasing stuff that's never going to get you there, is kind of being more mindful and bringing it back and say, okay, what do I value more, and what makes me feel. And that meant to delegate more and to carve out time to be able to travel, to spend time with my daughter and do more artsy stuff, and I do photography and all that. And so that stuff that I enjoy, traveling, and I start feeling successful, spending less time at work. And surprisingly enough, the businesses did just fine. In fact, they did even better as I stepped away.
Yeah, right. And here's the thing: those 5 things that you identified map to one thing: happiness. Right? Yeah. I don't care if it's a new Lamborghini, a brand new mansion, a house on the beach, a soulmate, a successful business, or healthy children. It all maps back to one thing: happiness. That's why life's rules is you have to be happy first. In order, right? That's everyone wants to skip over that and get to the Lamborghini, the other way. Right? And then they go, "Oh man, it's just sitting in my garage," right? This was, but those 5 things mapped happiness, right? Yeah. And me and you, our DNA is, and I'm a big UFC guy, and I study the success that they've had, and I study the Fertitta brothers so much, right? About what they were doing, and Lorenzo Fertitta to me is just an amazing individual on so many levels. But what he was saying is, you have to be, in order to get to that next level, right? You have to be good now. Like it's just life's rules, right? Yes. Life makes the rules, not me or you. Yes. Right? Life makes the rules. Yes. And here's what the interviewer asked him. They said, well, how do you not get burnt out, or how do you have this work ethic like this? He says, it's just simply a lifestyle, right? It's a lifestyle. When me and you talk about business, we light up like Christmas trees because we can't. The best way to describe it's a lifestyle. And the guy says, "Oh, okay." He says, "This is who we are."
We are, yeah.
Yes,
100%.
It's so
100%,
God. It's so interesting, man. That it's the same recipe, different ingredients.
Yeah.
Right. Different ingredients. Oh man, I love that. But we are definitely going to have you back, and we're going to talk about your other business and any other thing that you want to talk about, the businesses that didn't do what you thought it was going to do, right? And how you got back up, wiped yourself off, and kept going, because that's what people are going to they're going to know, right? Is
I have some interesting stories,
and it's the real. It's the real. That to me is that's the ultimate difference, because we can learn so much from books, but nothing like the real, man. It's that wisdom.
Until you're there, 4 years ago, about 4 years ago, I lost everything. I separated, and so I put everything I had in. I was selling my house, so everything I owned, everything I collected, from art to everything I owned, basically, except summer clothes in a bag, because I was going to travel for about a month.
Wow.
And then coming back to get a new place. I put everything with a safe, and coin collections and childhood photo albums. I mean, all my possessions for 20, 30 years, and everything I've brought actually from there as well. And through a mistake, administrative mistake, everything got liquidated and gone. So I come back and I just have that one suitcase.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Where was your law firm?
My law firm was here, and I've had the law firm.
Okay.
But all my personal belongings, all my personal, the business was working, and I sold my personal home, and so everything I owned
Just
went into that, and just wiped clean. And it was interesting, you know, and talking about, you know, what does this mean?
Yeah.
You know, and is this, what is an opportunity? You know, and since then my emphasis, and so I had to make a, you know, take out a lesson out of it. And one of the things we could talk about next time, but where maybe I don't need more stuff. Maybe I need more experiences. Maybe instead of showing things, I could tell stories, you know? And so going from, you know, that was a big shift for me, from kind of building, buying things and owning things. You know, again, it's nice to own nice stuff and enjoy it. That's fine. But more emphasis to experiences and adventures and stories. And so that was the lesson I learned. And so again, things happen, life happens, you know,
Yep.
takes everything away. And, you know, it's an opportunity to write on a new page and a clean page. And, you know, are you going to complain about what happened, or are you going to be excited about what's coming? You know, again, it all comes from your mindset and your attitude.
And it allows you to honestly say, you know what? How important were those things anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, now you just regained all that power, because so many people are terrified of losing that, right?
Yeah.
Because they think that's
Yes.
part of their identity. Life gave you the
Exactly.
ultimate gift, right?
Yeah.
We talked about self-image, right? That we give kids.
Yes.
Life gave you the ultimate gift, because now you are liberated.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
are liberated.
Yes.
And then it just comes back tenfold, right?
Yeah.
It just comes back tenfold. I love that, man. That's the story we want to now piggyback on for the next show, right?
You got it.
Because that I love it, man. I love when we just let the universe do all the heavy lifting, man. It's so great. Letting that happen. So we will have you back on, and you could just book your time.
I'll go in and book it. Guys,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will have this man back on. I'm really, we're going to go deep. We're going to go deep, man, because that's what you could bring to the table. And that's what people need.
Thank you.
Especially now, right?
Yeah.
It's that universal timing that we can't manipulate.
No.
Right? And when we try to manipulate it, it breaks.
Yes.
Every time it breaks, right?
Yes.
We just let it go. Because I had no idea I was even going to meet you prior to that show. So I love that. And guys, and if you're getting value from this, please jump on the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, share it out there. We're going to break these clips up, and we're going to have this man back on. And as always, guys, right? It's about showing up real, raw, and live every single time. That's how you take the power back in your life, showing up real, raw, and live. And we do it one way around here, Monster Motivator style, baby. Ah!